Just so impressive. I mean, for me, the most fascinating thing to watch is how Alireza is behind on the clock.
Right.
But when it comes to that under 1 minute, how he completely becomes a different beast. And from there, he's the one who flagged Nodirbek Abdusattorov. You know, I think in Alireza's mind, he just believes he's the better player here.
But also, there are some questions to be asked, right? Because if you're Abdusattorov, you're thinking, well, hang on a second. I get that I got flagged when, it was maybe 10, 15 seconds ahead on the clock, but he was 2 minutes ahead at one point. We mustn't forget that. Is there something he could have done better? There's going to be questions he's going to be asking himself about how he avoids that happening again.
Yeah, and in the meantime, a decision made in terms of opening here. I love this decision from Nodirbek in a must-win situation. He's grabbed a pawn short term. It looks like a queen's gambit accepted, just with colors reversed. And while the pawn will be regained, he's going to create two outside pass pawns of his own. Look at this, the white A and B pawns versus the black D and C pawns. Long term, there's a lot of potential here. Endgame's very favorable for white. He's created a lot of imbalance, and it's only just move 11. So a great start to this game for him in this quest to strike back. But he has to be quicker. He needs to apply pressure on the clock. You cannot get down to 1 minute versus 1 minute against Firouzja. It's just suicidal.
Yeah, he's made one thing clear. He's not going to go down into the night slow and silent in this one. Just the opening choice he has, right? The two connected passes that you're talking about on the left side of the board. But it's central control for Alireza Firouzja as well. It's going to be a very dynamic middle game. These kind of openings lend themselves to 2, not 3 results. Either white wins or black wins.
And a draw is the same as a loss, so ultimately a win-win scenario for Abdusattorov here. He puts his bishop on the longest diagonal, and yeah, I've actually studied these types of positions myself. They're just so irrational. Even with computers, it's hard to get to the truth, and that's rare in chess these days. Normally a computer will tell you, this side is better, that side's better, this is the plan, but here, it's very hard to find the correct moves.
So, in summary then, really, really good choice of opening from Nodirbek in a must-win situation. Place yourself in a position where, frankly, there's not going to be any shuffling of pieces around with 30 seconds left to go. I've got 2 pass pawns and we're on move 13, right? There's going to be plenty of life in the position. Yes, he might lose, but also he's giving himself the maximum opportunity to win, and that's exactly what he has to do right now.
He doesn't have an option. Now, black doesn't have an option in one position. One plan that must be stopped at all costs is to make sure that white is never able to push that A4 pawn. The game sort of revolves around that. White develops pieces, places them in such a way that knight headed to B3 next to assist that A pawn to move forward. Firouzja's going to do everything under the sun to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And this is an element, like the opening choice, closing thought there. It's an element to chess that is unique to chess as an esport. You're never going to sit here commentating Dota or Counter-Strike or any other esport or StarCraft or anything where you say, right, we don't actually have to win here. There's none of that. We can be playing for the draw. We can tactically prevent our opponent from winning, and that can be good enough to get the match result. So it adds another layer to the strategy, another layer to the metagame, to the psychology of what these players have to go through on this stage.
And the beauty of this specific quarterfinal, this clash, is that neither player is just not in their blood to play for a draw. But yeah, definitely a new dynamic that is unique to chess and is often one of the hardest to master. I know so many young players who are sitting there like offering draws or playing a bit passively because they know it's enough, and just playing moves that you feel suit your style. That tends to be the best solution, no matter the type of scenario you find yourself in. In the meantime, white's queen improves itself. It feels like he's getting ready to centralize his other rooks, maybe strike in the center with a white pawn soon, and that would signal the next phase of the game where it's all about calculation.
And I think this kind of a position suits both these players. This is where they sort of thrive on, both Alireza and Nodirbek, you know,
right,
where it's extremely combative. Energetic play is required by both of them. Queen C2 hinting at the E-pawn moving forward. We spoke about the plan for white trying to get A5 eventually. For black, it's the other pawn it wants. You want to aim at pushing your pawns in the center of the board if you're black here. E5 at some point in the air as well. It becomes a race. Flank versus the center.
And there's going to be a world where white has passed pawns on the A and B files, black has passed pawns on the C and D files, and it becomes very, very dynamic, and you have to constantly calculate and count the number of moves to make sure that you're not losing by time as opposed to by position on the board if your opponent gets a queen first in the endgame, for example.
Okay, shall we have a Another prediction here, another vote. Last time you said bishops, Tanya, bishops versus knights. What would you take? Flank pawns or center pawns?
Oh.
That's a tough one. But you know, my record so far in the prediction game's gone pretty good today.
It's
Just
not
a
bad
subtle
today.
reminder.
Yeah.
I'm taking the flank pawns in this one. You know, I want this match to go down to the wire. I want to see an Armageddon. I think that's the reason I'm taking the flank pawns. What about you guys?
I like the idea of the center pawns. It's still one big pawn chain there, and I feel like if this goes down to a time scramble, having two weaknesses on opposite sides of the board to defend, could end up coming back to bite white here. Assuming it goes to a time scramble, I think I'd rather black's pawns.
And normally I'm very kind of classically trained. I'm very biased towards the center pawns, but I kind of want to see Armageddon as well. So I'm not going to say I favor either side's position, but I know what result would be fun.
You are such a
You can't
diplomat.
dodge that. No, you can't dodge that.
You're
But,
such
you know,
a peacemaker, David. Unbelievable.
It's exactly how I feel. My mind says center pawns, but my heart says flank pawns. David, you got to make a pick.
I agree with Tanya. I've stuck my neck out on the line here. I don't mind burning and being wrong, but I need some decision.
I'll go center just because the flank pawns might drop. The flank pawns might be doomed. The last move from black is ganging up on this A pawn with the rook, with the knight, and with the queen behind. This pawn might be falling, so he needs to do something quick, maybe in the center or on the other side of the board, Nodirbek, to compensate for that pawn deficit he's about to incur.
It comes with some consequences, this last move. That knight has lost connection to the other knight, right? This is the moment that Alireza can think about the bishop and knight trade simply to destroy Nodirbek's kingside pawns.
Yes, exactly.
And then try to target those weaknesses. Bishop takes knight, forcing black to recapture with the pawn.
Yeah, and let's show this. The white queen might now slide up one square to attack that newly made doubled pawn on f6. Not just that, but the white A pawn threatening to move up the board. If black takes a timeout and defends that pawn, say marches forward in the center or moves his king, then the white A pawn advances, and this spells disaster for black. The knight will have to drop back, and the pawns will only continue to advance. We might see a scenario, however, if the black king doesn't defend the pawns and we see a rook capture. Now the white queen will jump in, and the black king feeling very airy. This looks precarious. The eval bar says level, but it's anything but dull, this position. That's good news for Nodirbek. It feels like this is what he's forced to do in this position if he wants to go for the win.
So plenty of imbalances in the position. You're right, Tanya. There is the opportunity now, a golden opportunity to potentially introduce that extra imbalance into the game, taking that knight. And maybe that's what causing Nodirbek giving a little bit of pause here. Are we going to see that happen on the board? It's also very committal. Once you do that, you're committed to that being your strategy for the rest of the game.
I just want to say, if that swap happens, and I think we're headed in that direction, pawn takes bishop has to be played. The queen does step up. We see the line being played out. f6 pawn. I think defending it is super dangerous. You know, we said this earlier. You cannot allow white to go a5.
Right.
That's just not legal in this position for black to do. So he's about to trade the a4 pawn with the f6 pawn. If that happens, our bet is off the table because those pawns have just disappeared.
Sure, but if you're going to do that, though, and you say a5 cannot be allowed to happen, what else are we thinking about here? Just take on a4 immediately.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
I think his hand is forced. I think he might have underestimated this sequence that we've just seen, Firouzja. Maybe he just thought, I'm getting rid of the enemy flank pawns. Danger averted. But no, the black king being this open with queens and knights nearby, that's going to force him on the defensive for the foreseeable future. And as we've seen so far in the 3 matches, neither side really wants to be defending. They would far rather be active about it. So the white queen coming in seems inevitable. There we go. One pawn disappears, the other pawn disappears, still level footing. Black's center intact, but the king very, very weak here. And a pre-move on the screen from Nodirbek.
You know, you take that rook, you want to recapture with the rook. So that's actually great online chess strategy, you know, for everyone watching, playing on chess.com. If there's a capture and you know what you want to take it back with, that's the pre-move that you want on your screen.
I should point out, we've seen pre-moves go wrong before. I experience pre-moves going wrong on a daily basis, I think it's fair to say. You want to make sure that you generally only use pre-moves in forcing situations where you know there's only the one continuation. Otherwise, if you accidentally pre-move and your opponent has multiple options to choose from, and they happen to pick the one you're not thinking about, often ends in immediate disaster.
Happens to all of us, John. You're not alone in that, but
Oh,
like in
yes.
this case, after rook takes rook, it's got to be the move rook takes rook. You know, you have to keep your queen there defended. You just capture back, hit the black queen. I'll point out one idea that Alireza needs to watch out for in all positions. It's the queen sliding over to h6, the knight jumping over to g5. And that's a checkmate in 3 that you need to watch out for.
Yeah, I'm wondering if something like knight d7 is almost forced, so that you can play moves like, oh god, I'd be really scared to think about moves like f5 in this position, but I'm wondering if that actually allows the rooks and queen to slide across a little bit easier, try and take away g5 as a square. And yeah, we're addressing that threat immediately, but that knight can still jump into g5.
Stopped.
There we go.
There we go. Either way, bringing pieces to the defense of your king is always the solution. Often you need one defender, maybe 2 defenders here. The black queen, black rook are guarding some important squares. Likewise, the black knight might have been a great defender. Knights are a king's best friend after all. But it does mean that, there we go, white gets access to the open A file, putting pressure on both flanks. He's going to be playing a bit of a guessing game here with Firouzja, Nodirbek. He's going to be applying threats on the queen side in order to deflect the black pieces away from where the real action is happening near the black king.
This is amazing full board awareness by Nodirbek Abdusattorov. You know, he's not just thinking about one side of the board. He's using all corners, all entry points to sort of get that attack to fruition right now. And look at that, almost ready with his next move. Barely took any time because he knows that the clock is also a weapon that he must use.
It's very important. 5 minutes plays 3.5 right now. Abdusattorov is doing very well indeed. We mentioned, of course, and we've seen that Firouzja is an absolute beast when he gets to the sort of bullet and hyper bullet time controls, but nothing beats just having more time than your opponent to consider your next move. He's fantastic with 30 seconds on the clock, but is he more fantastic with Nodirbek with 5 minutes, for example? That's always difficult to justify.
Yep. He's learned his lesson, Nodirbek. It's almost hopeless against Firouzja when it comes down to a mad scramble. The mouse skills just unparalleled. And here we see keeping a bank of time. 4 minutes 40 against 3 minutes 17. The pawn stepping forward, connect 4 again for the black pawn structure. I'm very biased towards that now, but it does mean that the white knights get a bit more access to squares. The black pawn's blocked for now on the dark squares. There we go. One knight jumps, creating a square for the other knight to leap forward to potentially. The white knight on d2 is currently unemployed, needs some kind of work. And very difficult to know how to improve here for black. Queen trades, who does that favor? Might be white, unclear. And definitely not the type of position where there's easy moves. That's the key. That's why Firouzja was shaking his head.
Can the knight on b6 be used in a more clever way than just as a blockader of the pawn? Because I'm looking at the light squares that knight is looking at, and I'm going, it's clearly doing a good job of stopping that pawn advance. But beyond that, it's not really involved in creating any threats.
Yeah, the black knight, I think that's just the problem. It takes a few moves to get to more active posts, and not easy now. The route is cut off. That white rook hitting the black bishop, but also preventing the black knight from really moving as Firouzja facing the threats. This is a golden opportunity. Abdusattorov's done everything right this game. Perfect game so far. Just the execution of the finish. If he gets a chance now, that is going to be the key. He needs to keep the 2-minute advantage.
Strange question here. Tanya, do you think this is one of those positions where later on we could see a c3 push, sacrificing that pawn so that c4 becomes an outpost for the knight? Is that a thing?
It's definitely on both players' radar. You know, you always have to watch out for that pawn advancing one square forward. Combine them with tactics or strategic ideas, like you mentioned, has to be timed really well. But I think the position lends itself to extremely concrete play. Right. So bishop to b8 first attacks the rook, and Nodirbek takes a pause. To me, this looked like a move that he should have had a response to. He keeps the rook on the 7th rank, attacks that knight. Now your move, c3, is being threatened. Now that the knight will assist that pawn to move ahead.
Yeah, not just that, but the black knight actually has a square to jump back to, and the white rook almost trapped. From there, it will leap into d3. It's going to transform from a poor, lowly horse to a stallion if it does land. It just needs one more move, 2 more moves. This is danger suddenly for Abdusattorov, who is burning away that clock.
And I'm looking for ways for the white knights to maneuver themselves to try and stop that straight away. It's going to take several moves for that to happen. There's no like one move counter offering to swap off a pair of knights.
No, that's not a luxury that Nodirbek has right now. And these are the difficult moments to deal with because you've been on the attack. You've been the one who's been putting the pressure on the front foot. And now suddenly, out of nowhere, one of the worst pieces on the board for Alireza Firouzja becomes a big, big weapon. That knight, if it lands on d3, combine it with the queen against the white king, it might be Nodirbek who needs to go on the defense. He moves forward with the knight because that's the only chess that these guys know. Go forward, attacks the bishop, continues to attack the bishop, not giving black the time for that knight maneuver.
He's really consistently, stubbornly hunting down that bishop now. Not too many safe squares for it. There we go. It finds a way to create a threat, at least, hitting the white rook on c1, which doesn't have too many safe squares of its own. There we go. Protects its own king. Now, the white king huddled up nice and safe. It's just about whether white can create any threats before the black pawns push forward.
I'm scared. I'm scared for that c-pawn. I mean, 3 steps away from becoming a queen, a direct path assisted by its own minor pieces right there. This is getting fun.
There was a part of me that was thinking, hang on a second, we're going to have to start calculating whether or not we can just push right now because the bishop on a3 is watching the queening square as well. This is so dangerous for white.
So dangerous. This could turn. The eval bar says big advantage and whoa, tactics. If that knight is captured, the white queen is staring across the board at the black knight. The queen's vision on the 5th rank now blocked by the black rook. He needs to keep up the energy here, Nodirbek. Is there a reply? Maybe he missed this block by the black rook. Firouzja certainly missed the knight jump, but reacted and recovered very well.
Wow. So now, black is about to win a piece.
Whoa, he gives up his queen.
What?
He gives up the white queen. He gets a rook, a bishop, and pawn in return. It's actually level material after all of that. But you have to think that the black queen is going to do a good job of covering everything here.
And also, creating chaos, thriving under time pressure. It's 2 minutes versus 1. I know we say Firouzja shines in these scenarios, but is this a little bit too much to overcome? Crazy imbalances and so much to calculate.
And he's not happy with this imbalance, He had that shake of his head again. He's panicking because it's not only the rook, knight, and pawn. That b5 pawn is way worth more than just the pawn. It's going to make sure that it ties down plenty of black pieces. Now, Nodirbek attacks the black knight as well, pushes the pawn. Nodirbek might be down a queen, but he's still playing for the win.
Yep. Clock is key here. 2 minutes versus 1 minute. He needs to keep the speed, Nodirbek. You can take the black knight. You can just remove your own knight from attack. Either way, he's done everything right. Magnus has said it. Levon Aronian has said it. It's easier to play with pieces rather than a queen when it comes to a time scramble. You have more pieces to pre-move with. This is his golden opportunity. Can he seize it?
And it's 49 seconds for Alireza Firouzja, who needs only a draw to advance to the semi-finals. A semi-final spot on the line. Nodirbek Abdusattorov has created everything, all the opportunities to get that comeback win. The knight moves forward. The black queen needs to attack the white knight to keep the material balance. Rook takes knight, queen takes knight, loses another pawn.
It's now 2 pawns, a rook and a knight for the queen. So much material. The white knight isn't a great piece, but it can save itself, can improve itself. He's only got 34 seconds, still so much of the game ahead, Alireza Firouzja. Surely we're headed to Armageddon now, but Abdusattorov nervously looking at the clock, shaking. You can see the nerves on his face as he calculates, retreating with his knight. That's not a great square, but there we go. He carves out a square for it to jump forward to.
But it comes at the cost of a big pawn in the center. And now Alireza gets the rook to tie down that b pawn from moving forward. Nodirbek Abdusattorov trying to activate every single piece. 27 seconds.
1 whole minute advantage for Nodirbek in the time scramble. Firouzja is going to need to show off all of those bullet skills to save this one. The checks continue. The black king being tracked down now. The white rook still need to coordinate. Still eyeing up some pawns.
This is going into an Armageddon. That is my prediction. 19 seconds. I know Alireza Firouzja, he is an absolute mega beast with that much time on the clock. But look at the position. The 2 rooks coming in. Checks. Pawn on f6 being attacked right now. Defended. Gives a check.
Big mistake apparently from Alireza Firouzja. It's not about the board, of course, it's more about the clock. But the white rooks are wreaking havoc right now. The black king is actually about to be checked back to the back rank. And there we go. Nice hit on the black queen. Finding a way to keep the tension, keep material. And he's blundered his rook!
Oh my goodness,
Nodirbek.
no!
He's blundered his rook with 12 seconds for Alireza.
He's still playing on the clock. That was a blind spot. Nodirbek Abdusattorov recovers, gets straight back to the board. But now, completely lost on the board. Alireza Firouzja about to deliver checkmate, and he does. He goes through to the semi-finals.
Alireza Firouzja in dramatic fashion. Might I remind you, 30 seconds played, a minute 40, back against the wall. Incredible imbalances in the game. Manages to win with checkmate on the board to seal the series.